Who has enjoyed this series on the book of Daniel? Anybody enjoyed if you haven't got to hear it all, go online. You can check it out and listen to it. It is going to be honest with you, a tough series to do as a pastor because there is so much depth to it and so much studying to do. Give you a heads up. The next few weeks, it goes even deeper. Because if you look and study the book of Daniel, we've kind of been going through it. About half of the book of Daniel is historic, which goes through like what happened. And the other half is like totally prophetic, showing or pointing to the future. The prophetic part, you'll see that Daniel's the most quoted book in the book of Revelation. And so we're going to go through, we're getting to that point where it goes, even the beginning, which it's historic, is also prophetic. It shows the culture that we live in and how culture changes. And there's a great parallel to what Daniel was living in to what we live in today. And so as we study this, the next few weeks, it goes even deeper. The last week, it's a 6-week series. The last week, we're going to go into the book of Revelation, and it'll be a study and a depth on the end times and what that looks like and all the amazing, and it's a lot of study. And so pray for me as we do that. Today, we're in the 4th week of this series. Today, we're going to be talking about the handwriting on the wall. Who's ever heard that saying, handwriting on the wall? What does that mean? It usually means something bad's going to happen. You know, this is the handwriting on the wall. It's going to show what's going to happen. And that phrase comes from this story in the Bible, the handwriting on the wall. It's in the story of Daniel. Look in Daniel chapter 5. And there's some verses in your notes. We're going to go through a whole bunch more. There's a whole bunch more that we're going to go through, so you can write those down. We couldn't fit all of them in your notes. We had to make it into a small book, so you can write those down if you want to study it later. But Daniel chapter 5, verse 1, it says, King Belshazzar gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles, and he drank wine with them. And while Belshazzar was drinking the wine, he gave orders to bring the gold and the silver goblets that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. Now, what had happened was when Nebuchadnezzar, they came in and they conquered Israel, they conquered Jerusalem, they went into the temple, they tore it down, and they took out all of the holy things from there. Part of those were goblets that were there, and they took them. Nebuchadnezzar had them in storage. He wasn't messing with them. Belshazzar decided he was gonna use them, which was very wrong to do. We'll see that it was very dishonoring to God what he was doing with what was God's holy articles. And it says he got them and they got him to drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblets, been taken from the temple in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles and his wives and his concubines, they all drank from them. They're getting drunk using these cups that came from God. And as they drank the wine, they praised. Look at this. They praised the gods of gold and silver and bronze and iron and wood and stone. Now we'll get into that here in just a little bit. They praise the gods of gold and silver. They praise the gods of material things. How many know we live in a world that's very much like that? That material things in our culture have become our God. And so they were doing that. They were praising the gods of material things, which aren't really gods at all. And it says, look at this. I think this is funny. It said, suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared. Who thinks that would be like freaky? If you're like there in this room and all of a sudden this hand just shows up. Now, that's what I think is awesome and funny about God at the same time. God doesn't do this again anywhere else. This happens once. God does things so different over and over and over again. And so I think he's up in heaven just thinking, hey, you know what? I'm going to mess with him big time. I'm not going to send an angel down, which would make you, really afraid. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to all of a sudden just have this hand show up and it's going to be there. I wonder if it was like a hand out of a box. What was that show? The Addams Family? Remember the hand? Probably not like that, but this hand just shows up and it starts to write on the wall. And so, they're all freaking out. I would be too. It says this hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. And the king watched the hand as it wrote. At that moment, he was wetting his robe. That's probably what happened. He was like, whoa, dude, there's a hand on the wall writing. And here's the other thing. It was writing in a language that no one knew. So it's writing these things on the wall, and you're like, what are you even writing? I'm going to read some other verses. They're not in your notes. In verse 6, it says, and the king's face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his knees knocked together, and his legs gave way. He passed out. He just fell on the ground. He was so scared, and it doesn't say what his robe, but I'm sure that's in there somewhere. And it says, and the king called out for the enchanters and the astrologers and the diviners, the people that were the witchcraft people. He called for all of them to be brought. And he said to the wise men of Babylon, whoever reads these writings and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple, which means they're royalty. And they'll have a gold chain around their neck. He's going to give them money, and they'll be made the third highest ruler of the kingdom. He goes, hey, this is crazy. Handwriting on the wall. I don't know what it says, but if you can tell me what it says, I'm gonna make your dreams come true. But none of his people could read it. None of them knew what was going on. And so he's sitting there and he is scared. He's frightened. He's losing it. And then all of a sudden the queen comes in and goes, hey, remember your dad. Your dad had something like this go on. He had a dream, and remember, who did he call? He called Daniel. You know, in the beginning, if you look through the book of Daniel, it is a long book. It really is. It's long. I don't mean chapter-wise. I mean from the time it started to the time it ends. The story's pretty long. It started when Daniel was like 18 years old, and it went to like when he was 90 years old. So this was Daniel was probably in his 70s. He's in his 70s, so they called Daniel to come in, and Daniel comes in. He comes in to what's going on, and the king says, hey, if you tell me what this says, if you tell me what this means, if you tell me all of this, then here's what I'll do. I'll give you purple to wear. I'll give you gold around your neck, and I'll make you the third highest ruler in the kingdom. And you know what Daniel said? He goes, I don't want that. I don't want your stuff. That's not what it's all about. I don't want that. And he goes through and he goes, that is not what I want. That is not what I want. And then he goes on and he starts telling him, he says, here's the deal. The deal is that you saw your dad. What happened with your dad? Now, if you've been here for the rest of the series, you already know what happened to dad. If you don't, I'll tell you. His dad Nebuchadnezzar was warned by God because his life was all about him. His life was about the stuff that he made. And he was warned by God to turn, but he didn't turn. So what happened when he didn't turn? He lost his mind for 7 years. He went crazy for 7 years, like eating grass and living outside. And he lost until he got to this place where he repented. And he goes, God, you are God, and I'm not God. And he repented. He got his life right. And when he got his life right and he put God where he was supposed to be, everything got back in order again. Well, here's the deal. Daniel says this. He goes, you saw what happened to your dad, yet you are doing the same thing. What is that? That's stupid. Who's with me? When you see, if I go down this path, that's what's going to happen. That's what he chose to do. And he went down this path. Look in verse 23. It says, he says, you could have bowed down. You could have repented. You could have said, oh, no, God, you're God. But instead that you dishonored God. Instead, you've set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. It says, you done messed with God. You done picked the wrong fight, buddy, and you decided, I'm going to mess with God, and I'm going to say, no, I'm going to use God's stuff because I am higher than him. It goes on and says this in the rest of verse 20. It said, you had the goblets from his temple, and they were brought to you, and you had your nobles and your wives and your concubines. They drank from them, and you praised the gods of silver and of gold and of bronze and of iron and of wood, which cannot see or understand. Look at this. This is what I'm going to grab this. But you did not honor God, who holds in his hand your life in all your ways. You did not honor God. You had a chance to do what's right. You saw what happens when you don't do what's right, but you chose not to honor God. And verse 25 says, and this is the inscription that was written, Mene, mene, tekel, parsin. And this is what the words mean. We're going to look at what those words mean. These words that were written on the wall that no one understood, but God gave Daniel a revelation of what they meant. And I believe they're very prominent with our culture and with our lives today. And they can teach us lessons on how we live in a world, in a world that worships the gods of silver and gold. Who knows it's easy to get drug into that? Anybody with me? It's easy to be all about the stuff, all about things that don't matter. It's easy about putting things above God. And we're going to talk about that. I don't love gold. I don't love God. I don't love this. I love God more. And we're going to talk about how do we really recognize if we do or if we don't. In a world that tries to pull us this direction to say this is more important, how do we stand out in that world that follows the wrong thing? And he goes on and says this. He goes, the first word, it means this. It means God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. You know, that's some serious business. He says, God has numbered your days and he has brought it to an end. There's a warning right there. And I believe it's a warning that we need to look at, that we need to heed. If you're taking notes, you can write this down. I think sometimes we forget that our days are numbered. sometimes we all forget that our days are numbered. Our days are numbered. Okay, I want to share a secret with everyone that's not really a secret, and it's kind of, it could be kind of not a nice thing, but I want everybody to realize this because it's the truth. Everybody listening to me all around the room. One day, you're going to die. Everybody in this room, one day you're going to die unless Jesus comes back and we go to him, and that would be really cool. I'd rather go like that. But one day, the truth is, one day we're all going to die. Our days are numbered. As a matter of fact, in the book of James, it says this. It says in James chapter 4, verse 14, it says, why do you not even know what will happen tomorrow? What is your life? What is your life? Your life is but a mist or a vapor. It appears for a while and then it vanishes. He's saying life is like this. Life is like going outside on a cold day when you breathe and you see your breath and all of a sudden it disappears. That's what life is like. Everybody grab that. That's what life is like. Life is like a breath. And we have to realize, I think this will help us if we realize our days are numbered. We don't have an unlimited number of days on this planet. We have a limited number of days on this planet, and we have to make a decision that we recognize that our days aren't going to last forever. See, some people think, well, I'll be doing this forever. I'll be doing this forever. I'll be doing this forever. When the truth is, our days are numbered. And he tells them this, and that's the warning that's there. And I would say this, because our days are numbered, shouldn't we take advantage of the days that we have? Anybody out there with me? Because our days are numbered, we have a number of days that we have, and I don't even like thinking about that, honestly, because I'm 50 years old, and I still think I'm 20. When my leg's better, I'll outrun all of you. No, but we don't like to think like that, do we? But the truth is that we have a certain number of days. But with a certain number of days, you would think we would take those certain number of days and make them into something that's important. But how many of our limited days do we waste? Anybody out there? How many of our days do we just waste? How many days have we given away to worry? How many days have we given away to fear? How many days have we given away to stupid things that don't even matter? Anybody with me? See, we need to make a decision. My days are numbered, and because my days are numbered, I'm going to make my days worth something. I'm going to make my life worth something because my days are numbered. We need to look at our life and say, how will I have my life make a difference? I have a challenge for anybody out there. Anybody with me? You want to meet the challenge that, okay, nobody does. Who? Okay, I'm going to give you the challenge right now. I was praying about this the other day, and you know what I want us to do as a church? I want us to take the challenge, and I'm going to say this because we have a few couples in our church, and I think it's so cool. I've seen some young couples in our church that they have just gotten on fire for God, just on fire for God. And you know what I've seen is they've gotten on fire for God? I see them coming to church over and over and over again, but I don't see them coming to church by themselves. I see them starting to bring people. And I actually was talking to someone this morning in first service, and you know what? They had filled up a whole row that they had gotten so on fire for God. They started inviting their friends, their family, their neighbors. They started inviting everybody and had a whole row filled up full of people that their life had made a difference. They counted the numbers of their days and they thought, my life's going to make a difference right now. So the challenge I want to throw out there is how many of us think or want to take the challenge to say, I will fill up a row next year in 2020. I will fill. Who thinks you could do that? Who thinks you could fill up? If you go to this side, I think there's like 11 chairs over here. We have like 13 and 13. Who thinks you could bring 12 or 13 people and fill up an entire row? Who thinks they could do that? Raise your hand. The rest of you underestimate yourself. You're like, I don't know enough people. Go to Walmart. Who would say, I could take that challenge and I could fill up an entire row? Who thinks they could fill up a whole row? And they could take, some of you, Lord, move on people's hearts. All of us are going to do it. What if all of us did it? We'd have to go to how many multiple services but how many lives would be changed if we numbered our days and we put the most important thing there? Take that challenge and say, I'm going to make a difference. Realize our days are numbered. Let's enjoy every day. Everybody with me? Let's enjoy every day and not give days away. Go ahead and look at the next one. Tekel, it says, you have been weighed on the scale and been found wanting. You've been weighed on the scale and been found wanting. Here's the truth we can find from that we live out. How many of us, we allow our lives to get out of balance? How many times do we allow our lives to get out of, you've been weighed on a scale and you're out of balance. Your life is lacking. You're not doing what you're supposed to do, living the way you are called to live. I want us to examine this in our lives as we look at it, and you can see this. How are we spending our time? What are we investing in the most? What are we giving our life to the most? And I think if we started to look at that and think, what am I giving my life to the most? It would make us realize we're probably giving our life to the wrong things. Who thinks you probably spend too much time watching television? Too much time on social media? Too much time doing things that really don't matter? What if we started investing in things and having our life be in balance by giving our life to the right things? Who thinks the number one thing should be God? If we made God number one in our life, I had this conversation the other day with, I was talking to a young lady, I was talking to her, and she was going through some really rough stuff. Her life was messed up, and she was really, really struggling. And I talked to her, and I said, I have a question for you. I said, do you think that if you got on fire for God and started living for Him with your whole heart, do you think your life would be better or your life would be worse? I said, now be honest with me. Don't just throw an answer out there because I'm a pastor. Do you think if you really live for God, your life would be better or your life would be worse? She goes, oh, my life would be so much better. I said, so you're telling me how bad your life is right now, and your life is kind of sucky, and you don't like where your life's going, and everything's falling apart, but you're telling me that if you live for God, that if you got your life in balance, your life would be better. Who thinks that if you got totally on fire for God, your life would be much better? Who believes that? Who believes your family would be stronger? Who believes everything would be more blessed if you just got on fire for Him? Okay, most of us would believe that, but what do we have to do? We have to get our life in balance to have that happen. So I'm going to challenge everyone in this room. Let's take an assessment of our life. What do we spend the most time doing? What do we pour our most into? And look at our lives and say, how can I change this? I want all of us to take a look and say, okay, what in my life needs to change so I get my life in balance? Putting God first. Who in here thinks your life would be better, your day would be better if you started off every day spending time with God? Like on your drive to work or before you get to work, you wake up early and you pray and you read your Bible and you spend time with Him. Who thinks He would make your day better? Or at lunchtime, instead of doing stupid stuff, you spend time with Him and you pour in, you get close to Him. He will make it better. The truth is we need to get our life in balance and say, God, I will make my priorities right. Who thinks your life would be better if you spent more time with your family? Okay, nobody. I don't want to spend time with my family. It's going to be Thanksgiving. How many of you grew up? Anybody else? I grew up like this. I grew up in a family where when we ate dinner, we didn't eat dinner around a table. We ate dinner around a television. Anybody else? You got your food and you went and sat around. Who in here, you ever did? That's the way you grew up. Anybody grow up like that? Some of you did. Who grew up eating dinner around a table? You did. I didn't grow up that way. So when I got married, Kim's like, I was like, can we just go watch TV? She's like, no, we're going to sit down and eat. I'm like, can we just stand up and eat? Because we'll eat faster. And I like to move. And I'm like, and she goes, no, let's sit down and eat. That's become woven into our family fabric of we sit down at the table and we eat dinner together and we put our phones away. Why? Because we want our life to be in balance. What are things in our life that are out of balance that we need to make a decision to get back in balance? Go through and examine that. I got some things. The average American, here's what we spend a lot of our time do. The average American eats out in their lifetime 14,411 times. The average American eats out 14,411 times. Can I share a secret with you? If you want to give to the building program, eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Don't eat out all the time. You'd be amazed how God will, well, I don't have any money. It's because we blow our money. You know, over 3,000 of those times that we eat out, it's at McDonald's. My wife says it's McDevil's. We can't go there because it's not healthy at all. There's another one. The average person, the average American watches television 13 years and 4 months. They will spend 13 years of their life and 4 months watching television. Watching TV. That's the average American. The average American spends 5 years waiting in lines. Different lines. Who hates waiting in lines? Anybody with me? But if we're going to be there, what if we say, you know what, I'm going to get my life in balance. I'm waiting in line at Walmart. What does that mean? There's people in line with me. So I get to be light in this line right now because I'm going to get my life in balance. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 6 says this, it's better to have a little with peace in mind than to be busy all the time. It's better to have a little with peace in mind than to be busy all the time. What do we need to do? Realize our days are numbered. Every day is valuable. What do we need to do? Get our life back in balance and say, I'm not going to let this steal my time. I'm not going to let this steal my life, but I'm going to let this be what I invest in. Here's the next one we see. It says Perez. It actually is a different word than the Parson word. It actually is the singular form of that. It says, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. It says this, it says, you're going to lose everything you have. Why? Because we ignore the warning signs. How many times do we have warning signs in our life? How many times do we have things in our life that are like stop signs that say, stop, don't do this, don't do that, don't live your life like that? Don't live your life like that. We live in a world of crazy. We live in a world of getting stuff. But what if we realize the warning sign of, you know what, your life shouldn't be all about the stuff. Your life shouldn't be all about everybody knowing your name. Your life shouldn't be about all your likes on social media. Your life should be about more than that. But how many times do we drive through the warning signs just because we want to live that American dream? What if we started to guard ourselves and say, I'm not going to drive through the warning signs? Anybody ever driven through a yellow or a red light? That's dumb. What happens? Eventually you'll be in a wreck. Why? Or get a ticket, yeah. Because we drive through the warning signs with our life. When we do that, do you know, here's what I'd say. Most marriages that are messed up because they drive through warning signs. They have a different way they're supposed to go, but they drive through the warning signs. Most relationships with God are messed up because they drive through the warning signs. Do you know what I found in my relationship with God? Is I find a lot of times God leads me by red lights instead of green lights. Like I'm like, God, should I do this? Should I do that? And God will, instead of God saying, yes, do that. That's happened a few times. But mainly God, I'll feel like God says, no, stop, don't go there. Because God says, if you don't go there, I'm going to keep you safe. But how many times do we drive through the warning signs of life? You know, I'll give you an instance of this, driving through the warning signs. For those of you who know, about 4 weeks ago tomorrow, I had surgery on my knee. I had a torn ACL, torn meniscus, and they told me I could not walk for 6 weeks. Couldn't put weight on my leg for 6 weeks. I have to be on crutches, and it's 4 weeks tomorrow. I'm praying for favor with the doctor. She tells me I can do a marathon, and or actually that I can walk on it. So, but one of the things that I've had to do is I've had to slow down. I've had to slow down. Like the first week, the doctor told me I could not drive for 2 weeks. I drove after 5 days. And, when my whole family was asleep, I actually have a video. I won't show you. I didn't know this, but one of my sons, my youngest son, sent me a video. He was the first one up. I'd already left the house. He was like, Dad, where are you? Are you safe? Are you okay? I just want to know you're okay, Dad. Message me back. And I didn't see that he was upset. And I did that because I was going crazy being stuck in the house. My wife told me this. We've been married, 26 years. My wife came to me and she goes, Tom, we've been married 26 years. She goes, during this time of recovery of your leg, that's the only time in the 26 years that I remember you staying home all day, one day, and never leaving the house. 26 years. I have left the house every day because I could not take being in the house cooped up. Who remembers the ice storm we had a while ago? I left the house. I slid on my rear end about a mile down the road. I couldn't go to a store, but I had to get away because I'm like, And you know what? I have learned so much from that warning sign. I prayed, God, heal my leg. I want a miracle. And I believe God for healing. And it didn't happen. And I had surgery on it. And the doctor told me, you need to slow down. You need to do this during this recovery time. And I was like, I think you're from the devil. But you know what? It wasn't. It was God. It was honestly God. I think I went through this because it taught me a lesson. Amen. And it's continuing to teach me a lesson that it's okay to slow down. As a matter of fact, one of the worst verses that God gave me was this during this whole process. He said this. I'm like, Lord, I like to walk and pray. And he's like, you can sit down and pray. You can just sit down in the chair and you can chill and hang with me. And then he gave me this verse, Psalm 46, be still and know that I'm God. He goes, it's hard for you to recognize who I am because you constantly have to move. Why don't you learn how to be still? See, I had driven through so many warning signs, but God will teach us it's okay to be still and not drive through the warning signs. Be still and know that I'm God. God wants to talk to us, but you know what we have to do? We have to take time to be quiet and to listen. What are the warning signs? I'm going to say this. What are the warning signs in your life? What are the warning signs in your relationship? Don't drive through the warning signs. But stop. What if the king would have said, no, I see the warning signs. I'm going the wrong direction. And he would have repented and gone the other one. What would God have done? God would have restored him. Don't drive through the warning signs. Keep going. I want us to do this. Look in Daniel chapter 5, verse 29. We'll see what happens at the end of this. This whole story of it going on. It says, and then at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed with purple. He told him what was going to happen. He goes, this is what's down with you. He clothed him with purple, and a gold chain, even though he didn't want it, was placed around his neck. And he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. That's not what he wanted, but what happened? God's favor was upon him. Everybody grab this. I want everybody, this is not really, it goes with this, but I want everybody to grab this. Okay, he didn't care about the stuff, but God still gave him the stuff. Did you know that sometimes that happens? When our life isn't consumed with the stuff, it's okay to have the stuff as long as the stuff doesn't have us. Amen. When we get to a place where the stuff has us, that's where we get out of line and we have to go through. But he didn't want the stuff, but he got the stuff because the favor of God was on him, and I guarantee he would have given it away in a second. And it says this, he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. It says, that very night, Belshazzar, the king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. He drove through the warning signs. He went the wrong direction. What can we learn from this? What can we learn from this story? I'm going to hit this really quickly, and we're going to let you go. Number one thing we can learn from this story, live life with a sense of purpose and urgency. Live life with a sense of purpose and urgency. How many times do we look back and we're like, oh, where did this go? Because we don't live life with a sense of purpose. Everyone in this room, God has a purpose and a plan for you. Live life with a sense of purpose. Live life realizing that it's not all about the gods of gold and of silver and of stuff, but live life with the God-given purpose you have placed inside of you. This is one of the reasons why we have this thing called Pizza with the Pastor. It's not just so you can come and get free pizza. One of the things we've woven into this Pizza with the Pastor that we do, and we're just doing it on one night. We used to have it in 3 or 4 different classes. Now we're just doing it all in one on a Wednesday night. You can check it in your bulletin, and you can sign up for it if you want. One of the things we do is we go through these 2 different tests that we give you. One is a personality test, just kind of figure out how you're wired. The other is a spiritual gifts test to figure out what is your spiritual gifting. What are the giftings God's given you for his kingdom? What do we do with those tests? You get to see those and realize, how did God make you? Because God made every one of us different. What if we lived according to the purpose of how he made us? Come and find out what he made you to do and who he made you to be, and then live life with a sense of purpose and urgency. Psalm chapter 39, verse 4, it says, Lord, remind me how brief my time on earth will be. Remind me that my days are numbered and that my life is fleeing away. My life is no longer than the width of my hand, and an entire lifetime is just a moment to you. Human existence is just a breath. What if we lived our life with a sense of urgency, realizing every day is an important day? I believe this. We're talking about the end times, and one of my huge things is I believe we should live every day like it's the end times. We should live every day with a sense of urgency and with a sense of purpose, that we are here to make a difference. Well, but I'm wasting years in line at Walmart. No, God wants you to use that with a sense of purpose, because your purpose goes with you to Walmart, to work, to church, to school. Everywhere you go, that sense of purpose does not leave you. But what if we live life with that sense of purpose and of urgency? Here's the next thing we learned from this story. Put first things first. Put the first things first. What are the most important things in your life? I would challenge you and encourage you this week to go through and write down, what are the most important things in my life? Put God at the top. That's where he should be. But God, then what about your family? If your family's high on the list, then what do you need to do? Put first things first. Let me share a secret with you that my wife told me. As a pastor, there are times where as a pastor, you don't want people to be mad at you, or you don't want people to be like, oh, you want everyone's approval, which is never going to happen, by the way. Hey, everybody got that? You live for an audience of one. But there are times where people say, hey, can you come do this? And I have to say, no. We have lost people in our church before because they asked me, hey, can you come out to eat dinner with us? Can you come do this? Can you come do that? And there are times where I have to say no. There have been times where someone asked me to do something, and it was on the same time when my children had a ball game. And they said, hey, would you come and do this? And I'm like, no, I can't come and do that. Why can't you do that? Because my kid's playing a ball game. Well, their ball game is more important than this event or than sitting down and eating dinner with me? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, their ball game is more important. And if you have a problem with it, get over it. Everybody, because you have to learn to say no. Listen, if you don't say no to the wrong things, you'll never say yes to the right things. Everybody grab that. If you don't say no to the wrong things, you'll never say yes to the right things. If you don't say no to the good, you'll never be able to say yes to the great. Who wants to say yes to the great? Then we have to make a decision. I'm going to put first things first. Matthew 6:33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. Set your purpose and make a decision. What is the most important in my life? What is the most important in my life? And I will do that with all my heart. Here's the last one. Do it now. Do it now. Don't wait till later. If you realize things in your life need to change them now. Well, I'll change them next week. No, you won't. You won't. Because the more you keep pushing it off, the less likely you are to do it. Who realizes that there are changes in your life that need to happen? Anybody out there? Anybody have changes in your life that need to happen? Whether it's how you eat, where you spend your time, how much you spend with God, what you give to Him. Listen, what if we did it now? With the sense of urgency, this is the time. I'm not going to do it later. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to make these changes in my life right now. Who would like God to flood your life with His goodness? Who would like that? Well, He may not do it till tomorrow. Who would rather Him do it today? So we take action right now and watch Him move. I'm going to close with this last verse, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 2. I tell you, now is the time of God's favor. Now is the day of salvation. Everybody grab this. It's time, it's time, it's time. Let's do it now. The changes that need to be made in our life, let's not put them off. Well, I'll do it after the first of the year. Do it now. Amen. I'm going to seek His face. Whatever we have, 21 days of prayer and fasting. Do it now. What if we go after Him and we make the changes we need to make? Well, it's not going to be popular. People won't like it. What do? We don't follow the crowd. We follow Christ. Amen. And we make the decisions that God tells us to make to live a life of purpose. But I've been going the wrong direction, doing the wrong thing. You know what God is? God is a God of mercy. We see that in King Nebuchadnezzar's life. That God said, turn around. He didn't do it. Went crazy for 7 years. What did God do? He didn't cut the tree all the way down and uproot it. He left the stump there because God is a God of the second and third and the millionth chance. Let's take the opportunity right now and live the life of purpose we are called to live. Who wants to go there? Let's pray. Lord, I thank you. God, I thank you. Everybody stand up on your feet. Stand up on your feet. Lord, I thank you that you've called us to live a life of purpose. Not a life by accident. And God, help us to realize that our days are numbered. And God, whether we have very young people in this room, older people in this, we have a range of different ages. And here's the deal. Every one of our days is numbered. And let us live every day with a passion and with an urgency that we live it for you, on purpose for you. God, show us. God, your word says this, search me and know me and see if there be any wicked thing in me. Show us areas of our life that need to change. God, and help us to change them. I always say this, Lord, I cannot change them on my own. I need your help. And so help me to change them. First of all, show them to me. And then help me to change them so that my life can be lived on purpose for you. I pray that for every one of us in this room. Let us live a life on purpose. I pray that purpose would come alive. Where many of us think, well, my dreams are over. This is over. I've went the wrong path. Let dreams come alive and let purpose come alive again. And I thank you. The word you gave me for the upcoming year, 2020, is it's a year of breakthrough, but I believe that it starts now. Why do we have to wait? But I pray right now for you to move. And God, for that sense of urgency and purpose to come alive inside of us. God, where filling a row would be nothing. We could fill a section because of our sense of urgency and purpose because our lives are called to make a difference. But let us make the adjustments we're called to make to bring you glory and to always put you first. Where we've worshiped the gods of this world, help that to change and let you be our one and only. Father, I pray for that. Let us go out into this world with a sense of purpose and let us be light in this world. In Jesus' name. Everybody with me? Amen. Who wants to live with a sense of urgency and purpose and with light that's shining? Let's go in the world and do it. Let's start it today.